Humanity turns the tide. How humans changed the course of a losing war. Part 1. The desperate call. The war room of the Galactic Coalition command station was filled with silence. Fleet Commander Orvax stood at the center of the massive circular chamber, his 6 thin legs trembling slightly. The holographic map before him showed the galaxy in 2 colors. Blue for the Coalition, red for the enemy. 30 years ago, the map had been mostly blue. Now, red covered almost everything. The Velthari Dominion had been unstoppable. Their ships were faster. Their weapons were stronger. Their soldiers felt no fear and no doubt. They conquered world after world with cold efficiency. The Coalition had tried everything. New weapons, new ships, new strategies. Nothing worked. The Velthari adapted to every tactic within days and crushed any resistance. Orvax was old, even by the long-lived standards of his insectoid Selenith species. He had seen the beginning of this war. He had watched his people lose their home world. He had buried friends, family, and countless soldiers under his command. And now, he was about to do something that made his pride burn with shame. He was going to ask the humans for help. The humans had joined the Coalition only 5 years ago. They came from a small blue planet called Earth, located in a quiet corner of the galaxy that no one had cared about. When they first made contact with the Coalition, most species had ignored them. Humans were small, weak, and short-lived. They had no natural weapons, no special abilities, and technology that was centuries behind the galactic standard. Many Coalition members had questioned why they were even allowed to join. But Orvax had studied the humans. He had read their history, and something about them made him curious. These creatures had spent most of their existence fighting each other. War was in their blood. They had developed thousands of ways to kill and survive. And despite having every reason to destroy themselves, they had not only survived but reached the stars. Perhaps, Orvax thought, that was exactly what the Coalition needed. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Yoon Tae-sun walked in, followed by a young woman with sharp eyes. The human admiral was not tall by galactic standards, but he moved with a quiet confidence that made others notice him. His dark hair was streaked with gray, and his face showed the calm patience of someone who had seen many battles. The woman beside him was Kim Hana, a combat engineer. She carried a datapad and looked around the room with obvious interest, studying everything from the architecture to the alien faces watching them. Several Coalition officers made sounds of disapproval. A Melveran diplomat, his crystalline body flickering with colors that showed his emotions, stepped forward. "This is your great hope, Commander Orvax," the diplomat said. "2 humans and a handful of primitive ships? The Velthari have destroyed armadas of thousands. What can these creatures possibly do?" Admiral Yoon did not react to the insult. He simply looked at the holographic map, studying the positions of enemy and friendly forces. Hana continued scanning the room, her fingers moving across her datapad. "I did not ask for your approval," Orvax replied to the diplomat. "I asked for solutions. None of you have given me any. So I am trying something different." "Something desperate, you mean?" another officer said. "Yes," Orvax admitted. "I am desperate. We all are. Or have you not noticed that we are losing?" The room fell silent again. No one could argue with that truth. Admiral Yoon finally spoke. His voice was calm and measured. "Fleet Commander, I thank you for inviting us. I know it was not an easy decision. My people are new to this war, and we have much to learn. But we also have something to offer. And what is that?" The Melveran diplomat asked with obvious doubt. "A different way of thinking," Yoon said simply. He turned to Hana and nodded. Hana stepped forward, connecting her datapad to the main display. The holographic map changed, showing detailed records of Velthari attacks over the past 10 years. "I have been studying your battle data," Hana said. Her voice was clear and confident. "The Velthari are impressive. Their tactics are perfect. Their coordination is flawless. Every attack follows optimal patterns based on mathematics and logic." "We know this already," an officer interrupted. "That is why they are winning." "That is also their weakness," Hana replied. The room stirred with confusion. Orvax leaned forward, his compound eyes focusing on the young human. "Explain," he said. Hana pulled up a series of battle recordings. "The Velthari do not improvise. They do not take risks. They follow the best statistical outcome every single time. This makes them predictable. If you know what the best move is, you know what they will do. But they adapt," another officer argued. "Every time we find a weakness, they fix it." "They adapt to tactics," Hana agreed. "But they do not adapt to chaos. They do not understand choices that make no logical sense. And that is what humans are very good at." Admiral Yoon stepped forward again. "My people have a long history of winning battles we should have lost. We have defeated larger armies, stronger enemies, and impossible odds. Not because we were better, but because we were willing to do what our enemies did not expect." Orvax considered these words carefully. He had read human history. He knew about their wars, their suffering, and their stubborn refusal to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. "What do you need?" Orvax asked. "Access to all your battle data," Yoon replied. "And a chance to prove ourselves. Give us a battle. Something small. Something you have already written off as lost. Let us show you what humans can do." The Mulverin diplomat laughed. "You want us to waste resources on a doomed mission led by primitives?" "I want you to give us a chance," Yoon said, his eyes meeting the diplomat's gaze without flinching. "If we fail, you lose nothing you are not already going to lose. If we succeed, you gain something valuable." Orvax was quiet for a long moment. The other officers waited, some with doubt, others with curiosity. Finally, the old commander made his decision. "Nexer Station," he said. "It is a mining outpost near the front lines. The Velthari will attack it within days. We do not have enough ships to defend it, so we plan to evacuate and abandon it." "We will defend it," Admiral Yoon said without hesitation. "You will likely die," Orvax warned. Yoon smiled slightly. It was a tired smile, but there was something hard underneath it. "Humans have been told that many times throughout our history. We are still here." Hana looked up from her datapad, her eyes bright with focus. "Fleet Commander, I would like to request all sensor data from previous Velthari engagements." "Everything you have. Why?" Orvax asked. "Because there is always a pattern," Hana said. "And I'm very good at finding patterns." Orvax gave the order. As the humans left the war room to prepare for their mission, the old commander watched them go. He did not know if he had just made a brilliant decision or a foolish one. But for the first time in many years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt hope. Humanity Turns the Tide. How Humans Changed the Course of a Losing War Part 3. The Human Way of War. The Great Hall of Coalition Command was filled with officers from a dozen different species. They had come to hear the humans explain their victory at Nexer Station. Some came with genuine curiosity. Others came hoping to find that the victory was just luck and nothing more. They did not want to believe that a species they had dismissed for so long might hold the key to winning the war. Admiral Yoon Tae-sun stood at the front of the hall, calm and composed as always. Beside him were Hana, Ji-won, and a new face, Cho Yoonbai, a strategist with gray in her hair and patience in her eyes. She had spent 30 years studying warfare on Earth and had been called to help the coalition understand human methods. High Chancellor Melvex himself had come to observe. The ancient crystalline being rarely left his chambers. His presence showed how seriously the coalition was taking this meeting. "Admiral Yoon," Melvek said, his voice like wind through chimes. "Your victory has given us much to consider. But before we discuss future plans, we must understand how you achieved it. Our forces have faced the Velthari for 3 decades. We have superior numbers. We have advanced technology. Yet we continue to lose. How did your small force succeed where our great fleets have failed?" Yoon nodded respectfully. "Chancellor, with your permission, I would like strategist Cho to explain. She has studied this question for many years." Yunbai stepped forward. She moved slowly and deliberately, letting the room settle before she spoke. "The Velthari are logical beings," she began. "They make decisions based on mathematics and probability. In any situation, they calculate the optimal response and execute it perfectly. This makes them extremely effective. It also makes them predictable. We have tried to predict their movements before," an officer interrupted. "It did not help us." "Because you tried to beat them at their own game," Yunbai replied. "You created better algorithms. You built faster computers. You tried to outcalculate beings that were born to calculate. That was never going to work." She activated the holographic display, showing a simple diagram of 2 opposing forces. "Humans approach war differently. We do not always choose the optimal path. Sometimes we choose the path that seems foolish or wasteful or even suicidal. We sacrifice pieces to win games. We retreat to lure enemies into traps. We attack positions we cannot hold just to make our enemies spend resources defending them. We do things that make no logical sense by pure mathematics." "But why?" the Melvaran diplomat asked, genuinely confused. "Why would you choose a worse option when a better one exists?" "Because war is not mathematics," Yunbai said. "War is about minds. It is about fear and hope and confusion. The Velthari understand tactics perfectly. They do not understand psychology. They do not understand what it means to be afraid, or desperate, or inspired. These are the things humans use as weapons." Hana stepped forward to add her analysis. "At Nexer Station, we use randomness and unpredictability. But those were just tools. The real weapon was confusion. The Velthari had never faced an enemy that did not behave rationally. When we broke their expectations, they did not know how to respond. Their perfect algorithms had no answer for chaos." The room was quiet as the officers considered these words. For many of them, the ideas were strange and uncomfortable. War was supposed to be about strength and resources and strategic advantage. The concept of war as a psychological battle was alien to them. Fleet Commander Orvax spoke up. "You mentioned fear and desperation as weapons. Can you explain further?" Yoon nodded to Yunbai to continue. "On Earth, humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years," Yunbai said. "We have learned many lessons from our conflicts. One of the most important is that an army is not just ships and weapons. An army is made of individuals who can be frightened, discouraged, or broken. The Velthari focus only on destroying military assets. They ignore the minds behind those assets." She changed the display to show historical records from human wars. Images of ancient battles, desperate last stands, and impossible victories filled the screen. Throughout our history, smaller forces have defeated larger ones. Weaker armies have beaten stronger ones. The key was almost always the same: break the enemy's will to fight. Make them believe they cannot win. Make them afraid of what you might do next. "The Velthari do not feel fear," an officer pointed out. "Perhaps not in the way humans do," Yunbai admitted. "But they feel uncertainty. They feel confusion. And when their calculations fail, when their predictions prove wrong, they hesitate. That hesitation is a weakness we can exploit." "High Chancellor." Melvex leaned forward, his crystalline body catching the light. You speak of taking the offensive. For 30 years, we have been defending. We have been retreating. Are you suggesting we attack the Valkyrie directly? Yes, Admiral Yoon said firmly. Defense alone cannot win this war. Every day we wait, the Valkyrie grows stronger. They take more worlds. They build more ships. If we continue as we have been, eventual defeat is certain. The only hope is to change the nature of the conflict. You want us to risk our remaining forces on attacks? The Melveran diplomat said with alarm. That is madness. If we lose those forces, we have nothing left. If we keep those forces safe and unused, we lose slowly instead of quickly, Yoon replied. That is not survival. That is just delayed death. The room erupted in argument. Officers shouted at each other in various languages and frequencies. Some demanded the humans be removed. Others called for their plans to be heard. The chaos continued until Orvax raised his voice. Enough, the old commander shouted. The room fell silent. Orvax looked at his fellow officers with tired eyes. I have fought this war for 3 decades. I have watched us lose again and again. I have seen friends die and worlds burn. And in all that time, nothing we have tried has worked. The humans are offering something different. Something we have not tried before. Perhaps it will fail. Perhaps we will all die. But I would rather die fighting than spend my remaining years watching everything I love be slowly consumed. He turned to High Chancellor Myvex. I recommend we approve the human proposal. Let them lead a strike against the Valkyrie target. If they succeed, we expand the program. If they fail, we are no worse off than we were before. Malvex was silent for a long moment. His crystalline form pulsed with colors that no one could read. Finally, he spoke. Admiral Yoon, present your plan. Yoon stepped forward and activated a new display. A complex web of routes and targets appeared. The Valkyrie rely on a network of supply lines to support their advance. Cut those lines, and their frontline forces become vulnerable. This location here is a major supply hub. It is deep behind enemy lines, heavily defended, and considered impossible to attack. He paused. That is exactly why we should attack it, because they will not expect it, Yunbai added. They will have calculated that no rational enemy would try something so risky. And they would be right. This is not a rational plan. It is a desperate gamble. But sometimes, a desperate gamble is the only way to change impossible odds. The officers studied the plan. Many found flaws. Many pointed out dangers. But slowly, a strange feeling began to spread through the room. It was the same feeling Orvax had felt when he first watched the humans leave for Nexus Station. Hope. Dangerous. Fragile hope. I will need volunteers from all species, Admiral Yoon said. This must be a joint operation. Humans cannot do this alone, and we should not. The coalition must fight together, or we will fall apart. Orvax was the first to offer his soldiers. Others followed slowly. Even the Melveran diplomat, after much hesitation, pledged ships to the cause. As the meeting ended, Unbai found Thrall waiting for her outside the hall. The young Selenith officer had been changed by his experience at Nexus Station. He no longer looked at humans with doubt. Strategist Cho, he said formally, I wish to volunteer for the strike force. I want to learn from your people. I want to fight like a human. Yunbai smiled gently. You cannot fight like a human, Sub-Commander. You are Selenith. But I can teach you to fight like something new. Something the Valkyrie have never seen before. A soldier who combines the best of both our peoples. Thrall straightened with determination. Then teach me. I am ready to learn. The preparations for the most ambitious operation in Coalition history began that very day. Humanity turns the tide. How humans change the course of a losing war. Part 2. The Battle of Exer Station floated in the darkness of space like a wounded animal waiting to die. The mining outpost had seen better days. Its metal walls were scarred from previous attacks, and half of its docking bays no longer worked. The Coalition had already begun evacuating non-essential personnel. Everyone knew the Velthari were coming. Everyone knew the station would fall. Admiral Yoon Tae-sun stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Inn's Resolve. It was not a large ship by galactic standards, but it was fast and tough. Around him, 12 other human vessels held position near the station. It was a small force. Tiny, really. The kind of force that made the Coalition officers shake their heads in pity. "Admiral, we have confirmed Velthari signatures approaching," reported Lieutenant Park Ki-won from her pilot station. She was young, with quick hands and quicker reflexes. Her squadron of fighter craft was already prepped and ready. Estimated arrival in 40 minutes. Looks like 3 cruisers and about 20 smaller attack ships. You nodded calmly. "That is what we expected. Are the modifications complete?" "Hana is finishing up now," Ji-won replied. "She says everything will be ready in time." Down in the engineering bay of Exer Station, Kim Hana worked with fierce concentration. Around her, a team of human engineers and confused alien technicians installed strange devices onto the station's defense systems. "I do not understand what these machines do," said Sub-Commander Thrall, a young Selenith officer who had been assigned to observe the humans. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of his confusion. "They seem to create random interference patterns. That serves no tactical purpose." Hana smiled without looking up from her work. "That is exactly the point. The Velthari expect patterns. They expect logic. These devices will make our defense systems behave in ways that make no sense. It will confuse their targeting computers. But our own gunners will also be confused," Thrall argued. "No," Hana said, "because our gunners will not rely on computers. They will aim by instinct and experience. Humans are very good at that." Thrall did not look convinced, but he stayed to watch. He had been ordered to report on human methods, and he took his duties seriously. These strange creatures fascinated and worried him in equal measure. In the medical bay of the station, Dr. Beek Selmi prepared for what was coming. She was a calm woman with gentle hands and steady nerves. She had served in human conflicts before coming to space, and she knew what battle wounds looked like. Now she was learning what alien wounds looked like too. A Melveran medic approached her nervously. "Doctor, I must ask, why are you here? Your people could have stayed on your ships where it is safer." Somi checked her supplies one more time. "Because people here will need help." "Does it matter if they are human or not?" The Melveran had no answer for that. The Velthari fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 3 massive cruisers emerged from faster-than-light travel, followed by swarms of smaller attack craft. Their ships were elegant in a cold way, all smooth curves and precise angles. Every movement they made was calculated for maximum efficiency. Admiral Yoon watched them approach on his tactical display. "All ships, hold position. Wait for my signal." The Coalition forces that remained at the station sent urgent messages. Their commanders demanded to know why the humans were not retreating. The Velthari force was clearly superior. Standing and fighting with suicide. Yoon ignored the messages. The Velthari began their attack exactly as Hana had predicted. They formed a perfect crescent formation and advanced at optimal speed. Their weapons charged at the mathematically ideal moment. Everything was precise. Everything was logical. "Now," Yoon said quietly, "the human fleet did something the Velthari had never seen before. Instead of forming a defensive line or retreating, the human ships scattered in random directions. They broke every rule of space combat. They flew too close to the station. They moved in unpredictable spirals. They fired their weapons at seemingly empty space. The Velthari, targeting computers, struggled to process what they were seeing. Their predictive algorithms could not calculate trajectories that made no logical sense. Shots that should have hit human ships missed by wide margins. Attack runs that should have succeeded ended in confusion. Park G1 led her fighter squadron straight at the lead Velthari cruiser. Her pilots flew in a loose, chaotic formation that looked sloppy and undisciplined. But every pilot knew exactly what they were doing. They had trained for this. They had practiced chaos. Hit the weak point Hana identified, G1 ordered. Second shield generator, lower section. They never guard it properly because attacking there is statistically inefficient. Her squadron opened fire in perfect unison. The Velthari shields flickered and failed in a cascade of blue light. The cruiser, suddenly vulnerable, took heavy damage from the station's defense weapons. On the station, Thrall watched in disbelief. They attacked where the odds of success were lowest. Why would they do that? Hana, covered in grease and sweat, grinned at him. Because the Velthari thought no one would be foolish enough to try. And that made it the perfect place to attack. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Velthari adapted, as they always did, but the humans adapted faster. Every time the enemy adjusted their tactics, the humans changed theirs. They used the station's mining equipment as weapons. They rammed damaged ships into enemy formations. They fought with a desperate creativity that shocked both allies and enemies. In the medical bay, wounded soldiers of many species began arriving. Somi worked without stopping, treating burns and broken bodies with calm efficiency. She did not care about the color of their blood or the number of their limbs. She treated everyone the same. A badly wounded Selena soldier looked up at her with fading eyes. "Why do you help us? We called your people primitive. We doubted you." Somi bandaged his wounds with gentle hands. "That does not matter now. You are hurt. I can help. That is all that matters." The soldier survived. He would tell others about the human doctor who saved his life without asking for anything in return. By the end of the battle, the Velthari fleet was in ruins. 2 cruisers had been destroyed. The third was retreating with heavy damage. The attack ships that survived fled in disorder. Naxxer Station still stood. Admiral Yoon stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by exhausted crew members. They had lost 4 ships. Many good people had died. It was a high price to pay. But they had one. Sub-Commander Thrall found Hana in the engineering bay, sitting against a wall in exhaustion. He sat down beside her. "I did not believe you could do it," he admitted. "I was wrong." Hana nodded tiredly. "Most people are wrong about humans at first. We are used to it. How did you know their weakness? How did you see what we have been missing for 30 years? Hana was quiet for a moment. "Because we know what it is like to be the weaker side. We know what it is like to face enemies that seem unbeatable. Humans have been doing this for our entire history. We learn to look for weaknesses everywhere, even in places that seem foolish to try." Back at Coalition Command, Fleet Commander Orvax received the battle report. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. A handful of human ships had defeated a Velthari attack force. An outpost everyone had written off as lost was still in Coalition hands. Around him, the other officers were silent. The Melveran diplomat who had mocked the humans was nowhere to be seen. Orvax looked at the map of the galaxy. For the first time in years, he began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the war could still be won. He immediately sent orders for Admiral Yoon to report to Coalition Command. The humans had proven themselves. Now it was time to see what else they could do. Humanity turns the tide. How humans changed the course of a losing war. Part 4. Operation Falling Star. The strike force gathered in the darkness between stars, far from any Velthari sensors. 37 ships of various sizes and designs floated in perfect silence. Human vessels flew alongside Selenith cruisers and Melveran destroyers. For the first time in the war, multiple species were fighting together under a unified command. Admiral Yun Taishan stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing the final attack plan. Beside him, Hana monitored enemy communications, looking for any sign that their presence had been detected. So far, the Valkyrie had no idea they were coming in the cargo hold of a transport ship. Commander Li Dongwu checked his weapons one last time. He was a quiet man with cold eyes and steady hands. He led the human special forces unit that would board the enemy station and disable its defenses from within. It was the most dangerous part of the plan. Everyone knew that many of them would not survive. "Commander," said a young Selenith soldier nervously, "I have never fought in close combat before. My people are not built for it." Dongwu looked at the alien with calm understanding. "Neither were humans once. We learned. Stay behind me and follow my orders. I will get you through this." The soldier nodded, trying to find courage in the human's confidence in her fighter. Park Ji-won ran through her pre-flight checks. Her squadron had been given the most difficult assignment: create a distraction big enough to draw away the station's defenders. It was essentially a suicide mission. She had volunteered anyway. "All pilots, check in," she said over the com. One by one, her squadron reported ready. Humans and aliens together, all willing to die for the chance to change the war. Admiral Yoon's voice came over the fleet-wide channel. "This is Admiral Yoon. In a few minutes, we will attack the enemy supply hub at Corval Station. This target is deep behind enemy lines. It is heavily defended. By all logical calculations, this attack should fail." He paused, letting his words settle. The Valkyrie believe in logic. They trust their calculations. That is why they will never see us coming. Today, we show them that the galaxy is not theirs to take. Today, we show them that the coalition can fight back. Today, we give them something they have never felt before: fear of what comes next. All ships begin attack. The strike force moved as one. They had trained for this moment for weeks. Every pilot knew their role. Every soldier understood the plan. And yet, they all knew that no plan survives contact with the enemy. G1 led her squadron toward the station at maximum speed. Enemy sensors detected them almost immediately. Alarms blared across Valkyrie command channels. Defense ships launched to intercept. "That's right," G1 muttered. "Come and get us." She pulled her fighter into a sharp turn, leading the defenders away from the station's weak point. Her squadron scattered in all directions, drawing fire and attention. Valkyrie targeting systems struggled to track the unpredictable human pilots. Meanwhile, the transport carrying Dongwu's team approached the station from the opposite side. Hana's analysis had identified a maintenance hatch that was rarely monitored. The Valkyrie had calculated that no enemy would be foolish enough to attempt entry there. They were wrong. The transport docked with a magnetic seal, and Dongwu's team cut through the hull. 12 soldiers, human and alien, poured into the enemy station. The corridors were narrow and filled with strange machinery. The air smelled wrong. Everything felt hostile. They encountered their first Valkyrie guards within minutes. The enemy soldiers were tall, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and emotionless faces. They moved with mechanical precision, raising their weapons in perfect sync. Dongwu did not give them time to fire. He moved like water, flowing between enemies and striking with lethal efficiency. His alien teammates followed, adding their own abilities to the fight. The Selenith soldiers were fast despite their nerves. The Melveran troops used their crystalline bodies to deflect enemy fire. The Valkyrie fell. They were not used to close combat. They were not used to enemies who attacked with fury instead of calculation. And they were not used to dying. Keep moving, Dongwu ordered. We need to reach the shield generator before they lock us out. Outside, the space battle intensified. Admiral Yoon commanded his fleet with calm precision, directing ships to exploit weaknesses that Hana identified in real time. The Valkyrie fought with their usual efficiency, but something was different. Their commanders were confused. The enemy was not behaving as expected. The calculations were failing. G1 Squadron had taken heavy losses, but they had succeeded in their mission. The station's defenders were scattered and disorganized. She had lost 3 pilots already, good people who had trusted her to lead them. Squadron, regroup on my position, she ordered, her voice steady despite her grief. We're not done yet. Her remaining pilots formed up around her. Together, they dove toward the station's main hangar, destroying supply ships and fuel reserves. Every target they hit would weaken the Valkyrie war machine. An enemy fighter locked onto G1's ship. She could not shake it. Its weapons charged for a killing shot. At the last moment, a human pilot named Kang Yuri flew directly into the enemy's path. Her ship collided with the Valkyrie fighter in a ball of fire. Both vessels were destroyed instantly. G1 wanted to scream, to mourn, to stop and process what had happened. But she could not. The mission was not complete. She pushed her feelings down and continued fighting. Inside the station, Dongwu's team reached the shield generator room. The door was heavily armored and protected by the most advanced Valkyrie security systems. Hana, we're in position, Dongwu reported. Can you get us through? Hana's voice came through his earpiece, focused and determined. I'm working on it. Their encryption is strong, but I found a backdoor in their maintenance protocols. Give me 30 seconds. Those 30 seconds felt like hours. Enemy soldiers were converging on their position. Dongwu and his team held the corridor, fighting off wave after wave of Valkyrie guards. The young Selena soldier, who had been so nervous earlier, fought with surprising bravery, covering his human commander without hesitation. The door opened. Go. Dongwu shouted. They rushed into the generator room and placed explosive charges on the main power conduits. The Valkyrie inside tried to stop them, but they were too slow. The charges detonated with a massive boom, and the station's shields collapsed. Outside, Admiral Yoon saw the shields fall and gave his final order. All ships, concentrate fire. Destroy that station. The combined fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams and missiles poured into the now vulnerable station. Explosions rippled across its surface. Secondary systems failed. Fuel reserves ignited. Dongwu, get your team out now. Yoon ordered urgently. Dongwu led his remaining soldiers back toward the maintenance hatch. They ran through collapsing corridors and burning sections. 3 more team members fell before they reached the transport. The young Selenith was badly wounded. Sub-Commander Thrall, who had joined the boarding party, carried him the last 100 meters. As their transport pulled away, the station exploded in a massive fireball. The shockwave knocked ships off course and filled the void with debris. When the light faded, there was nothing left but floating wreckage. The Valkyrie fleet in the area was crippled. Without supplies from the station, their frontline forces would be forced to pull back. For the first time in 30 years, the enemy was retreating. In the medical bay of Yoon's flagship, Dr. Somi worked through the night. She treated human and alien wounds with equal care. When Thrall brought in his injured comrade, she saved the young soldier's life with skill and determination. Thrall watched her work with something close to wonder. Doctor, I have seen many things in this war. I have seen bravery and sacrifice, but I have never seen someone care so much for strangers. Somi finished bandaging the soldier's wounds before answering. They are not strangers anymore. After today, we are all family. Across the galaxy, in the cold command center of the Valkyrie Dominion, Overseer Keth reviewed the reports from the battle. He was one of the highest-ranking Velthari commanders, a being of pure logic and calculation. He had never known failure, until now. "These humans," he said to his subordinates, "they are different from the others. They do not fight like rational beings. They sacrifice themselves for minimal tactical gain. They attack positions they cannot hold. They do things that make no sense." His subordinates waited in silence. "We must study them," Keth continued. "We must understand how they think. Because if we do not, they may become a threat we cannot calculate." It was the first time any Velthari had admitted that an enemy might be truly dangerous. The tide of war was finally beginning to turn. Humanity turns the tide. How humans change the course of a losing war. Part 5. The tide turns. 1 year had passed since the destruction of Corval Station. The galaxy had changed in ways no one had thought possible. The mapping Coalition Command no longer showed an endless sea of red. Blue zones had appeared. Contested regions had formed. The Velthari advance had not just stopped. It had been pushed back. Admiral Yoon Tae-san stood in the war room, watching the holographic display with quiet satisfaction. Around him, officers from a dozen species worked together as a single unified force. Human tactical methods had spread throughout the coalition military. Alien soldiers trained beside human instructors. Ships from different worlds flew in combined formations that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "Admiral," said Fleet Commander Orvax, his old friend, "the final preparations are complete. The fleet is ready for your command." You nodded. Today was the culmination of everything they had worked for. A massive coalition armada would strike at Velthari Prime, the heart of enemy territory. It was the largest military operation in galactic history. Across the fleet, soldiers prepared for battle. In the fighter base, Park Ji-won briefed her squadron. She had been promoted after the Battle of Corval Station. Now she commanded an entire fighter wing, humans and aliens flying together. "Remember your training," she told her pilots. "Trust each other. Watch each other's backs. The Velthari have never faced anything like us before. Today we show them what the Coalition can really do." In the tactical center, Kim Han-ah coordinated the intelligence efforts that would guide the attack. Her analysis of Velthari patterns had saved countless lives over the past year. She had trained dozens of alien officers in her methods. The Velthari were no longer as predictable as before, but Han-ah was always one step ahead. Strategist Cho Yun-bai had spent the year teaching coalition forces how to think like humans. She had written training manuals that were now required reading at every military academy. Her ideas had revolutionized how the coalition approached warfare. Commander Lee Dong-woo led the Special Operations Forces that would strike key targets during the main assault. His unit was a mixed force of humans and aliens, all trained to fight with the same deadly efficiency. Sub-Commander Thrall served as his second-in-command. The young Selenith had become one of the most respected officers in the coalition, and Dr. Beek So-mi had organized a medical corps that served soldiers of every species. Her compassion had inspired others. Healing had become as important as fighting in the new coalition culture. The fleet jumped to Velthari space in a coordinated wave. Hundreds of ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, forming a wall of force that stretched across the void. Facing them was the largest Velthari armada ever assembled, led by Overseer Keth himself. "All ships, this is Admiral Yoon," the commander said over the fleet-wide channel. "1 year ago, we were losing this war. The galaxy was falling into darkness. Many of us had given up hope. But we did not surrender. We did not run. We found a new way to fight. Today, we finish what we started. For the Coalition. For all the worlds we have lost. For everyone who sacrificed to get us here. Attack. The battle began with a fury that shook the stars. Coalition ships attacked with tactics the Valkyrie still struggled to understand. Random patterns, unpredictable movements, feints and traps, and desperate charges. The enemy responded with their usual precision, but it was not enough. G-1 led her fighters into the heart of the enemy formation. Her pilots weaved through storms of weapons fire, striking targets and disappearing before the Valkyrie could respond. She had lost many friends over the past year. She carried their memory with her into every battle. "For Yuri," she whispered, naming the pilot who had died to save her life. For all of them, her missiles found their targets. Enemy ships exploded in silent fire. On the ground of a nearby Valkyrie world, Dongwu led his forces in a coordinated assault on enemy command centers. The fighting was brutal and close. Valkyrie soldiers fell by the dozens, but they kept coming. They had learned from facing humans. They were harder to beat than before. Thrall fought beside his commander, moving with a mix of Selenith speed and human tactics. He had become something new, something the Valkyrie had never seen before. A soldier who combined the best of two different peoples. "Commander, the shield generator is ahead," Thrall reported. "Heavy resistance." Dongwu assessed the situation with cold precision. "We push through, no matter the cost." They charged. Soldiers fell on both sides. The battle was measured in meters and seconds and lives. When they finally reached the generator and destroyed it, only half of the assault team remained standing. In space, the tide was turning. The coalition fleet pressed its advantage, driving deeper into enemy formations. Overseer Keth watched his forces crumble with something he had never felt before. It was not fear, not exactly, but it was close. "All vessels, fall back to defensive positions," he ordered. It was the first time in his long career that he had ever given such a command. Admiral Yoon saw the enemy retreat and pressed harder. "Do not let them regroup. Maintain pressure." Hana identified the enemy flagship and relayed its position. G1 Squadron moved to intercept. Coalition cruisers closed in from multiple angles. Keth's ship was surrounded. "Overseer Keth," Admiral Yoon broadcast on open channel, "your fleet is defeated. Your supply lines are cut. Your forward positions are collapsing across the galaxy. This war is over. Surrender, and we will discuss peace. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you completely." Silence filled the communication channels. Every ship in both fleets waited for the response. Keth considered his options. His calculations told him that continued resistance was pointless. The humans had done what he thought was impossible. They had broken the Valkyrie war machine, not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through sheer unpredictability and will. "I will speak with you," Keth finally replied. Face to face, on neutral ground. It was not a surrender, but it was the beginning of something that had never happened before. Negotiations. 3 days later, Admiral Yoon met Overseer Keth on a small station between the battle lines. The two commanders studied each other with careful attention. One was a human of average size with tired eyes and gray hair. The other was a tall gray being with 4 arms and a face that showed no emotion. "Your people have surprised us," Keth said. "We calculated that you were too primitive to matter. We were wrong." "Calculations do not account for desperation," Yoon replied. "Or hope. Or the willingness to do what seems impossible. We do not understand these things," Keth admitted. "Perhaps that is why we are here." The negotiations took months. The war did not end with a single agreement. Trust had to be built slowly, one small step at a time. But the fighting stopped. The killing stopped. And slowly, carefully, something like peace began to grow. At Coalition Command, a ceremony was held to honor those who had made the victory possible. High Chancellor Melvex himself presented awards to the human leaders who had changed the course of the war. Admiral Yun, Hana, Ji-won, Dongwu, Yunbai, Somi. Each of them had given everything they had for a cause that seemed hopeless. 1 year ago, Melvex said to the assembled crowd, I asked the humans to explain how they won an impossible battle. They told me that the answer was unpredictability, creativity, willingness to take risks that logic said should fail. I did not fully understand then. I understand now. The humans did not just teach us new tactics. They taught us a new way of thinking. They showed us that hope itself can be a weapon. He turned to face Admiral Yun directly. On behalf of the Galactic Coalition, I declare that humanity is no longer a minor member species. You are essential. You are valued. You are family. Yun accepted the honor with characteristic humility. We did not do this alone, Chancellor. Every species in this room contributed. Every soldier who fought and died was part of this victory. Humans may have shown a new way, but the Coalition walked that path together. Later, after the ceremony, the human leaders gathered on a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars. They had all changed over the past year. They carried scars, visible and invisible. They had lost friends and parts of themselves. But they had also gained something precious. Do you think it will last? Ji-won asked. The peace? Yunbai considered the question. Peace is never permanent. But we have proven that the galaxy can change. That enemies can become something else. That is worth something. Dongwu, ever practical, spoke next. There will be more challenges. More wars. More threats we cannot predict. But now we face them together. That makes all the difference. Somi looked at the stars with gentle eyes. When I was a girl on Earth, I used to dream about what might be out there. I never imagined anything like this. I never imagined we would matter so much. Hana smiled. Humans have always mattered. We just needed the chance to prove it. Admiral Yun said nothing. He simply watched the stars and allowed himself a rare moment of peace. The war was not truly over. The future was uncertain. But for now, in this moment, the galaxy was a little brighter than it had been before. And humanity had made it so. Threl will join them on the observation deck, his 4 eyes reflecting the starlight. He stood beside his human friends in comfortable silence. He had once doubted them.